She tried to steal my life. The credit alert came at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, jolting me awake with a notification that someone had just opened a platinum credit card in my name. The application was submitted from Los Angeles, 2,800 miles from my apartment in Boston, by someone claiming to be me, but living a life I'd never lived. My name is Dr. Emma Caldwell, and for 6 months, I'd been watching someone systematically steal pieces of my identity while building what appeared to be a glamorous new life in California. Credit cards, bank accounts, rental applications, even job applications, all submitted under my name, with my social security number, but with details that painted a picture of a woman I'd never been. What my identity thief didn't know was that she'd chosen the wrong victim. I wasn't just some random target whose information she'd purchased on the dark web. I was a cybersecurity consultant who specialized in digital forensics and identity protection for Fortune 500 companies. My job was tracking down people who stole digital lives and ensuring they faced consequences that matched their crimes. She wanted to steal my identity and build a new life with it? Perfect. I was about to show her exactly what happened when you tried to rewrite the life of someone who made a living protecting people from digital predators. And by the time I was finished, she'd discover that some identities come with consequences she'd never anticipated. Picture this: a converted warehouse loft in Boston's tech corridor, lined with multiple monitors displaying security algorithms and threat detection software that I'd designed for corporate clients. I'd built my career on understanding how digital identities could be manipulated, stolen, and reconstructed, which made discovering my own identity theft feel like finding a burglar in my living room. The first signs had appeared 6 months ago: small credit inquiries that didn't match any applications I'd submitted, a notification about a change of address I'd never requested, a confirmation email for a gym membership in Beverly Hills that I'd certainly never purchased. Most people would have called their bank, filed a police report, and hoped for the best. But I wasn't most people. I was someone who understood exactly how identity theft worked, how thieves operated, and most importantly, how to track them down using the same digital footprints they thought they'd hidden. I started with basic forensics, tracking every fraudulent application, every false account, every digital breadcrumb that my thief had left behind. What I discovered wasn't just random identity theft. It was systematic life reconstruction on an elaborate scale. My thief hadn't just stolen my financial information. She'd created an entirely new version of me. According to the fake documents, Emma Caldwell had moved to Los Angeles to pursue a career in entertainment marketing. She'd rented a luxury apartment in West Hollywood, joined an exclusive fitness club, and was apparently living the kind of glamorous lifestyle that my real salary could never support. But here's what made this personal, beyond just financial fraud. She was living a better version of my life than I was. While I worked 16-hour days designing security systems, my doppelganger was apparently attending Hollywood parties and posting Instagram stories about her fabulous West Coast lifestyle. She'd even created social media accounts under my name, filled with photos of a woman who looked enough like me to be believable, but was clearly living in a world I'd never inhabited. Beach parties in Malibu, networking events in Beverly Hills, romantic dinners at restaurants I'd only read about in magazines. Using trace analysis techniques I'd developed for corporate investigations, I started mapping her digital ecosystem. Every account she'd opened, every application she'd submitted, every online presence she'd created, all using my personal information, but building an identity that was everything I wasn't. That's when I realized this wasn't just about financial fraud. This was about someone who'd looked at my life and decided to improve upon it. She'd stolen my identity and used it to build the kind of existence she thought I should have been living. The breakthrough came when I traced one of her credit applications back to its digital origin. Hidden in the metadata was information that most thieves would never think to scrub: geolocation data, device fingerprints, and network traces that led back to a specific IP address in West Hollywood. Cross-referencing that data with social media analytics and public record searches, I identified my thief. Madison Claire Torres, 28 years old, originally from Phoenix, Arizona, with a history of small-time fraud and identity theft across 3 states. Madison had made her living stealing other people's identities to fund temporary lifestyles before moving on to new victims. But she'd gotten comfortable with my identity, probably because it had better credit and more financial access than her previous targets. What Madison didn't realize was that she hadn't just stolen from another victim. She'd stolen from someone who understood exactly how digital lives were constructed, manipulated, and destroyed. And I was about to give her a masterclass in what happened when you tried to rewrite the life of someone who specialized in digital identity protection. Madison Torres had spent 6 months building a fake version of my life. Now I was going to spend some time rewriting hers and ensuring that the new version came with consequences she'd never forget. Once I had Madison's real identity, tracking her became a technical exercise rather than a mystery. She'd been sloppy with operational security, the kind of mistakes that amateurs make when they think they understand digital anonymity, but actually leave obvious trails everywhere. I started with social media analysis, cross-referencing her real accounts with the fake Emma Caldwell persona she'd created. What I found was a woman living far beyond any legitimate means, funding a lifestyle through systematic identity theft that she documented obsessively online. Madison's Instagram showed her at expensive restaurants, designer shopping trips, and exclusive events, all funded by credit cards opened in other people's names. She'd been running this operation for at least 2 years, cycling through victims while maintaining the appearance of being a successful marketing professional in Los Angeles. But the real revelation came when I accessed her employment history through professional databases I had access to for client background checks. Madison had never worked in marketing. She'd never had a legitimate job lasting longer than 6 months. Her entire adult life had been funded by identity theft and credit fraud. Using advanced search techniques, I mapped out her entire network. Bank accounts across multiple states, rental histories under different names, even dating profiles where she'd used stolen photos and fabricated career information to attract wealthy men who'd help fund her lifestyle. The scope of Madison's operation was staggering. She wasn't just a simple identity thief. She was running a sophisticated fraud enterprise that had victimized dozens of women across the country. My identity was just her latest and most lucrative acquisition. That's when I discovered something that made this personal in a way I hadn't expected. Madison had been researching me specifically before stealing my identity. She'd accessed my professional website, my company bio, even my LinkedIn profile to study how I presented myself publicly. She hadn't randomly selected my information from a data breach. She'd deliberately chosen to steal my life because she'd decided it was an improvement over her own. Madison Torres had looked at Dr. Emma Caldwell's professional success and decided to simply become her. I documented everything with the same forensic precision I used for corporate security investigations. Financial fraud, identity theft, mail fraud, wire fraud. Madison had committed enough federal crimes to face decades in prison if prosecuted successfully. But while I was building my case against Madison, I was also maintaining my regular client work, designing security systems for companies that needed protection from exactly the kind of digital predators Madison represented. Mr. Chen, the vulnerability assessment is complete. Your current system has 17 potential entry points that could allow unauthorized access to customer data. I recommend implementing the enhanced authentication protocols we discussed. That's when I had the idea that would transform my investigation from simple evidence gathering into the most creative revenge I'd ever orchestrated. Madison had stolen my professional identity to build her fake life. Now I was going to use my professional skills to systematically dismantle hers. Madison Torres had spent 2 years building a digital identity based on lies, fraud, and stolen information. But digital identities could be rewritten, manipulated, and destroyed by someone who understood the systems better than their creator. I wasn't just going to expose Madison's crimes. I was going to use my cybersecurity expertise to rewrite her entire digital existence, ensuring that every platform she'd used for fraud became a trap that exposed her to exactly the consequences she'd been avoiding. Sound of complex planning. Madison wanted to live in a world built on stolen identities and fabricated success? Perfect. I was about to show her what that world looked like when someone with superior technical skills decided to rewrite the rules. The beauty of being a cybersecurity expert is understanding exactly how digital identities are constructed, maintained, and verified across multiple platforms. Madison had built her fake life using systems she didn't fully understand, which meant she'd left vulnerabilities that I could exploit with surgical precision. I started with her financial infrastructure. Madison had been clever about opening accounts in different states and using various addresses, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd linked everything to the same devices and IP addresses over time. Using forensic tools I'd developed for corporate investigations, I could trace her entire network of fraudulent accounts. Phase 1 was documentation. I created a comprehensive map of every fraudulent account Madison had opened using my identity, complete with transaction histories, application data, and digital fingerprints that proved the theft. This wasn't just evidence for prosecution. It was the foundation for systematic reconstruction of her digital life. But Madison's financial fraud was just the beginning. She'd built an entire social media presence around her fake lifestyle, complete with fabricated relationships, fictional career achievements, and a network of followers who believed they were interacting with a successful marketing executive rather than a career criminal. Using social engineering techniques I'd mastered for penetration testing, I began infiltrating Madison's online world, not through illegal hacking, but through legitimate research methods that revealed how thoroughly she'd fabricated every aspect of her public persona. Her LinkedIn profile claimed 5 years of experience at prestigious marketing firms in Los Angeles. I contacted those firms directly. They'd never heard of Madison Torres. Her Instagram showed her at industry events and networking mixers. I traced those events and discovered she'd been crashing parties using fake credentials. Every claim Madison had made about her professional life was a lie. Every relationship she'd documented was with people who had no idea they were being used as props in her elaborate fiction. Her entire online existence was as fraudulent as the credit cards she'd been using to fund it. That's when I implemented Phase 2, controlled exposure. Using the same techniques I employed to protect corporate clients from social engineering attacks, I began systematically revealing Madison's true identity to the people and platforms she'd been deceiving. I contacted every company where Madison claimed employment, providing documented evidence that she'd never worked there and was using their name fraudulently. I reached out to every professional network she'd infiltrated, showing them that their marketing colleague was actually a career criminal. But the real masterstroke was her social media presence. Madison had spent 2 years building a following of people who admired her supposedly successful lifestyle. They had no idea they were following someone whose entire existence was funded by identity theft. I created a comprehensive report documenting every aspect of Madison's fraud, complete with evidence that any follower could verify independently. Financial records, employment discrepancies, location inconsistencies, everything needed to prove that successful marketing executive Madison Torres was actually serial identity thief Madison Torres. Then I did something Madison would never expect from a typical identity theft victim. Instead of just reporting her to authorities, I used my technical expertise to ensure that her fraudulent digital identity would systematically self-destruct. Every platform she'd used to build her fake life had verification systems that could be triggered by the right kind of evidence: employment verification, identity authentication, address confirmation. All the digital infrastructure that Madison had exploited to build her lies could be used to expose them. Madison Torres had spent 2 years stealing other people's identities to build a fake life. Now, I was going to use my cybersecurity expertise to ensure that fake life collapsed so thoroughly that she'd never be able to rebuild it. Phase 3 would be the most satisfying. Watching Madison discover that someone had rewritten her entire digital existence using the same methods she'd employed to steal mine. The difference was that I actually understood the systems I was manipulating, and I was very, very good at making sure digital identities stayed exactly where I wanted them. The first crack in Madison's fabricated world appeared on a Thursday morning when her Instagram account was suspended for false identity information. Her LinkedIn profile disappeared an hour later, followed by her Twitter account and her professional networking memberships. What Madison didn't understand was that social media platforms have sophisticated algorithms designed to detect fake accounts and fraudulent activity. Once those algorithms are provided with the right evidence, they systematically purge false identities across their networks. I'd submitted comprehensive documentation to every platform Madison used, showing that her accounts violated terms of service through identity fraud, false employment claims, and fabricated personal information. The platforms didn't just remove her accounts. They flagged her device signatures and IP addresses to prevent her from creating new ones. But social media suspension was just the beginning. Madison's entire lifestyle had been built on credit fraud and stolen identities, which meant her financial infrastructure was equally vulnerable to systematic collapse once the right pressure was applied. I documented every fraudulent account Madison had opened using my identity, complete with evidence that she'd never had legitimate income sufficient to qualify for the credit she'd received. Financial institutions are required to investigate identity theft reports, especially when they're accompanied by forensic documentation that proves systematic fraud. This is Dr. Emma Caldwell reporting identity theft involving account number. I have comprehensive evidence that this account was opened fraudulently using my personal information by someone who has never had legal access to my identity. Within 48 hours, every credit card Madison had opened in my name was frozen pending investigation. Her bank accounts were locked for fraudulent activity review. The luxury apartment she'd been renting with stolen credit was flagged for lease violation due to false income verification. The first sign that Madison understood what was happening came through a panicked voicemail left on the customer service line of one of the credit card companies. "This is Emma Caldwell calling about my account suspension. There's been some kind of mistake. I need these accounts reinstated immediately. This is affecting my ability to pay rent, buy food, everything." The irony was perfect. Madison was experiencing exactly what identity theft victims go through, suddenly finding their financial lives frozen while they tried to prove their identity to institutions that no longer trusted them. But I wasn't finished. Madison's fake professional life was about to collapse as thoroughly as her personal one. Using the same investigative techniques I employed for corporate security, I'd identified every business relationship, networking connection, and professional opportunity she'd accessed through fraud. Every marketing agency that had considered hiring Madison received detailed documentation showing that her entire resume was fabricated. Every networking group she'd joined was informed that she'd gained membership through false credentials. Every professional opportunity she'd pursued was revealed to be based on stolen identity and fraudulent qualifications. The woman who'd built her career on lies was discovering that digital reputations could be destroyed as systematically as they'd been created. Madison's professional network didn't just distance themselves from her, they actively warned others about her fraudulent activities. Meanwhile, my own identity was being restored with the kind of efficiency that comes from having forensic documentation and technical expertise. Every fraudulent account was closed, every false application was reversed, and every trace of Madison's theft was systematically removed from my credit history. But the most satisfying element was watching Madison's carefully constructed social media persona crumble in real time. The followers who'd admired her glamorous lifestyle were learning that everything they'd believed about her was a lie. Wait, you've been lying about working at those companies? I recommended you to my boss based on your experience. I can't believe I've been following someone who built their entire life on identity theft. This is disgusting. How many people have you stolen from? How many lives have you destroyed for your fake Instagram lifestyle? Madison Torres had spent 2 years building a digital identity based on stolen information and fabricated success. In less than a week, I'd systematically dismantled every piece of that fake life using the same digital systems she'd exploited. But I wasn't just destroying Madison's fraudulent identity. I was ensuring that she'd face legal consequences that matched the scope of her crimes. Because unlike her previous victims, I had the technical expertise to document her fraud so thoroughly that prosecution would be inevitable. Madison had tried to steal my life and rewrite it according to her own desires. Now she was about to discover what happened when someone with superior technical skills decided to rewrite hers. This time, with consequences she'd never be able to escape. The federal prosecutors were remarkably interested in Madison's case once I presented them with the comprehensive digital forensics package I'd compiled. Wire fraud, identity theft, mail fraud, and conspiracy charges across multiple states. Madison had committed enough federal crimes to face decades in prison. Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Chen reviewed my evidence with the appreciation of someone who understood exactly how difficult such comprehensive documentation was to compile. Dr. Caldwell, this is the most thorough identity theft investigation I've ever seen from a victim. You've essentially done the work of an entire FBI cybercrime unit. How did you manage to trace her activities so comprehensively? Madison made the mistake of stealing from someone who makes a living tracking digital criminals. She used my identity to build her fake life, but she didn't understand that I could use my professional skills to dismantle it just as systematically as she'd constructed it. Madison was arrested at her luxury West Hollywood apartment, the one she'd been renting with credit cards opened in my name. According to the FBI agents who processed the scene, she'd been living in complete denial about the systematic collapse of her fraudulent life until the moment handcuffs were placed on her wrists. The arraignment was swift and decisive. Faced with overwhelming evidence and the prospect of defending against charges that could result in 20-year federal sentences, Madison's public defender advised her to cooperate fully with authorities. Legal proceedings sounds. Her cooperation revealed the scope of her operation: 47 victims across 8 states, over $800,000 in fraudulent charges, and a network of accomplices who'd helped her access stolen personal information through data breaches and social engineering schemes. But Madison's legal consequences were just the beginning of her education about digital identity manipulation. The systematic destruction of her online presence had made it virtually impossible for her to rebuild any kind of legitimate digital life. Every background check would reveal her federal convictions. Every employment application would trigger alerts about her fraudulent history. Every attempt to open financial accounts would be flagged due to her documented pattern of identity theft. Madison Torres had tried to steal my identity and rewrite it as a glamorous Los Angeles lifestyle. Instead, she'd provided me with the perfect case study for expanding my cybersecurity consulting practice into identity recovery services. The techniques I'd developed to track Madison and dismantle her fraudulent operations became the foundation for a new service offering: comprehensive identity theft investigation and digital reputation restoration for high net worth individuals. Dr. Caldwell, this is Marcus Chen from Pinnacle Financial. One of our executives has been targeted by sophisticated identity theft. We've heard about your innovative approach to tracking digital criminals and restoring compromised identities. Could we discuss retaining your services? Within 6 months, I'd hired 3 additional forensic specialists and expanded Sterling Digital Security into a comprehensive identity protection firm. My experience with Madison had taught me that traditional identity theft services were inadequate for sophisticated crimes. Victims needed someone with advanced technical skills and investigative capabilities. But the most satisfying aspect of Madison's downfall wasn't professional. It was personal. The woman who'd tried to steal my life and improve upon it had discovered that some identities come with capabilities she'd never anticipated. Sound of personal growth. I'd also begun dating again, something that felt revolutionary after spending months dealing with someone who'd tried to literally become me. The men I met now were impressed by my intelligence, my technical expertise, and my ability to handle complex challenges with both professional skill and personal strength. I have to ask, David Harrison had said over dinner at a restaurant I could easily afford with my expanded business income. How did you track down your identity thief so comprehensively? Most people just file police reports and hope for the best. I realized that my professional skills were perfectly suited to handling personal digital crimes. Madison tried to steal my identity, but she didn't understand that my identity included capabilities she'd never be able to replicate. 2 years after Madison's arrest, I was sitting in my corner office overlooking Boston Harbor, reviewing quarterly reports for Sterling Digital Security's expansion into corporate identity protection services. My experience with identity theft had evolved into expertise that Fortune 500 companies sought when their executives faced sophisticated digital attacks. The business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined possible. Companies specifically requested Dr. Emma Caldwell when they needed digital identity crimes solved with the kind of technical precision and investigative thoroughness that ensured both legal justice and complete digital restoration. My reputation had spread throughout the cybersecurity industry. I'd become known for my ability to track digital criminals so comprehensively that their prosecutions resulted in maximum sentences and complete asset recovery for victims. Madison Torres was serving 12 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to 47 counts of identity theft and wire fraud. Her cooperation with authorities had led to the arrest of an entire network of digital criminals, but it hadn't reduced her own consequences significantly. More importantly, her digital identity had been so thoroughly destroyed that rebuilding any kind of legitimate online presence would be virtually impossible even after her release. Every search for Madison Torres would forever return results about her federal conviction for sophisticated identity theft. I'd also established a victim advocacy program that helped other identity theft survivors navigate the complex process of digital restoration. Using the techniques I'd developed to reclaim my own identity, we could restore victims' digital lives while ensuring their attackers faced appropriate consequences. Dr. Caldwell and her team didn't just help me recover from identity theft. They taught me how to protect myself from future attacks. The comprehensive investigation they conducted resulted in my thief's conviction and complete restitution for damages. I finally feel safe in my own digital identity again. My personal life had also transformed in ways I'd never expected. David and I had been together for 18 months, building a relationship based on mutual respect for each other's professional expertise and personal strength. "I love watching you work," he'd told me after observing one of my client presentations about advanced identity protection. "You have this way of thinking 10 steps ahead of criminals while making complex security concepts accessible to everyone. It's like watching a master craftsperson at work. Madison taught me that digital identities are more powerful than I'd realized. She tried to steal mine to build a better life, but she helped me understand that my real identity was much more valuable than she'd ever comprehended. That evening, I stood on the balcony of my upgraded apartment, larger and more elegant than anything I'd lived in before Madison's theft had motivated my business expansion, watching the sunset over Boston Harbor. Madison Torres had looked at my life and decided it needed improvement. She'd stolen my identity to build what she thought was a more glamorous existence in Los Angeles. What she'd discovered was that some identities are connected to capabilities that can't be stolen, only earned through years of expertise and professional development. She'd tried to rewrite my life according to her own limited understanding of success and fulfillment. Instead, she'd provided me with the motivation to rewrite my entire career trajectory, building something far more significant than anything she could have imagined. Madison wanted to steal my identity and live my life better than I was living it. Instead, I used my technical expertise to rewrite her entire digital existence, ensuring that her real identity would be permanently defined by the consequences of trying to steal mine. She tried to steal my life, so I rewrote hers. The difference was that I actually understood the systems I was manipulating, and I was very, very good at making sure digital consequences lasted forever. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's using your superior skills to ensure that someone's true identity becomes permanently visible to everyone who matters. And trust me, I was exceptionally good at making digital truths impossible to hide.